Welcome to a special edition of the Dino and Nelson Show. As you know, we're normally a real estate show, but this week we want to take a little time out for the 4th of July to remember some of our veterans, and we've got a very special show for you today coming up from the Lyons Air Museum. Now here's Dino and Nelson.
Good afternoon, Southern California. This is Dino.
And this is Nelson.
From the Dino and Nelson Show here on K-Talk, AM 1150. We're with you every weekend here in Southern California, and we can be reached at 888-814-3335.
Hey, Dino, we're going to go a little bit different direction with this show, and it's the 4th of July week. We really need to pause, maybe step outside of the business scope and really focus on why we're celebrating the 4th of July. It's not just parades and backyard barbecues. It's really acknowledging our servicemen and our servicewomen. And so I just wanted to do this brief dedication, a moment of silence, and really celebrate those people that are sacrificing for us. So it's the week of 4th of July. The Dino and Nelson Show is dedicating this broadcast to the military of the United States of America. We're broadcasting remote from the Lyon Air Museum at John Wayne Airport. And as we broadcast in front of some of the aviation's most historic planes from anywhere around the world, our U.S. forces are in fierce engagements as we speak. They're at risk of severe injury, loss of life. These service people hold tremendous skills and an indomitable fighting spirit, carrying on with utter disregard for their own lives. And they're routinely encircled by the enemy, whose sole focus is bringing harm and destruction to the U.S. They gallantly sacrifice their lives in service of our country. And I want to take just this moment of silence for prayer and thankfulness for our military service of the U.S.
That's a great idea. The Dino and Nelson Show is broadcasting from the Lyon Air Museum at the Orange County's John Wayne Airport. This place is a tribute to an era of military aviation of World War II and the Korean War. We're going to be spending time with the General William Lyon, one of California's business icons, decorated military leaders, and war veterans.
And Dino, later in the show, we're also going to be interviewing the Lyon Air Museum's president, Mark Foster, and then unbelievable stories coming up. Some of the docents, your favorite word, tour guides.
I had no idea what docents meant before we started this.
I realized that. We have some of the tour guides that are military veterans, World War II veterans, that are going to share with us some of their stories. So it's going to be an unbelievable show.
It is an exciting blast from the past with real-life experience. In case you just jumped into your car, this is Dino from the Dino and Nelson Show here on K-Talk AM 1150. We are heard on K-Talk every weekend afternoon, and we can be reached at 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335. This next segment is brought to you by First Centennial Mortgage. Market leaders and interest rates guaranteed. Text the word REFI to 313131.
So I want to do this introduction. I'm so excited about introducing our listeners to General William Lyon and focus on first the business side of your life. You've been in the development business and building new homes for over 50 years after you returned from the military. I believe you started in the Fullerton area with Lyon Homes. You've now built over 100,000 homes across California, Nevada, Arizona, one of the largest privately held building companies. And you also opened up a commercial bank as an adjunct to your business, serve on the board of that. The building business is captivated 5 decades of your activity. What led you to constructing new homes?
Well, I think it took place when I was in the military, and I was slated to go over to combat in the Far East, and I wanted to locate my family somewhere that they would be comfortable and safe. And I was stationed at Long Beach, California, and so we were driving around Orange County looking at different possibilities, and we found this tract up in Fullerton and bought the house and settled a family there.
So you didn't build your first home?
No, I didn't. And but I think I could have, because the way they built it was very difficult to get through with it. And my father had been a builder in the Depression, and I used to go around with him and see what was going on. And he built duplexes in Beverly Hills in the 30s and 40s.
So you already had the building legacy from your dad?
That's it, right.
And where were you being deployed to?
thing to go to the Far East, and so that's where I went, and it was a long trip over there.
So with all the business cycles that you've been through over 50 years, this last recession, the teeth have been bared on this recession. It's been difficult for every business sector, but particularly the real estate and housing sector. How do you feel about going through it, and what do you see going forward?
Well, we've seen a huge change lately in the building business. People are beginning to buy houses again. Our company, along with every other major builder, was put in a position that was pretty negative for 6 years rolling. And so it's been difficult, very difficult on our people in the company. We had to make a lot of different changes and reductions, and it was really, really tough. So we've seen it change over the last couple of months now, and it's changing not only here in Orange County, but in the whole state, and it's changing in other places we build, which is in Las Vegas and Arizona.
Just in case you didn't know, we are at the John Wayne Airport, and you might be hearing airplanes in the background. Bear with us on that, but we are live here at the Lyon Air Museum.
So with this recession, I find it remarkable that real estate goes through these phases where it can be the hottest commodity, everybody rushing into the marketplace, and then it takes on this persona of real estate's evil. And there was this time during this recession where people were scattered and moving obviously away from the housing sector, and now we've seen this uptick. People are rushing back in, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. They're rushing back in building houses. They're rushing in buying them, and so it was good to see. And it happened in the last couple of months, and it was almost, we can almost show you the day it started in different places and how they can be duplicated. The same thing happening, 1,000 miles away. It's a little hard to figure out how that happens in the growth and what the buyers are thinking about, but it's clearly changed dramatically.
Before we came here, I Googled you just to see if I can get some interesting facts on you, and I read something that I think is fitting right now. You said, anyone can be a leader when things are going well. True leaders emerge in the face of adversity. When the going gets tough, leaders need to be strong, resourceful, and a beacon of light for their employees to follow. I would think in this last recession that we went through, so many people went out of business, so many home builders, and your company stood the test of time. And here you are now emerging back on top again.
And optimistic. I mean, that's the biggest change. You feel a sense of optimism in the industry, correct?
You have to be optimistic in the building business, because if you're negative, you're not going to go anywhere. But it has changed. It is changing, and we think it's not. You can't call that change that it's going to be permanent. We don't know whether it's 90 days or 3 years or what, but it clearly is a major change. And I think it's people finally saying, well, maybe it is the right time for us to buy a house, because interest rates are the lowest that I've ever seen them, and I don't think we're going to see them retain there in the long future. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, we've been talking about this in previous shows, just that combination where home values have come down, interest rates have hit these places where everyone has that unbelievable reaction to them, and that combination is spurring now finally people to rush in and buy homes. And you're seeing at some of your subdivisions experiences that we've had before in other real estate cycles, but people lining up, multiple offers being made, maybe a lack of inventory. Are you finding that in the new development segment as well?
Yes, we're experiencing, most of the builders are experiencing the same thing, and traffic is much heavier than it was, and there are actual real purchasers that are out looking and deciding now this is the time to do it. So it's good, and it's been particularly helpful in our company to adjust back to that kind of an atmosphere, because it's been negative for 6 years.
Yeah, it's been a long recession, and I guess that's the sign of optimism when General, you have, I think, close to 50 subdivisions in varying degrees of construction underway across 3 states. Nothing screams optimism more than the commitment. We're here at the Lyon Air Museum with General William Lyon talking about Lyon Homes, the new development sector.
We have to break for just a moment to go to commercials, but we'll be right back with General Lyon here on the Dino and Nelson Show on K-Talk, AM 1150.
You want to invest in today's real estate market and take advantage of the low values, but the property needs work. What do? Polaris Equity Group provides an answer with its market-exclusive 100% rehab program. The Polaris loan covers the purchase price, down payment, rehab budget, 6 months of interest, and lender's costs, all in exchange for a profit split between you and us. Call Polaris Equity Group to hear more about it. 949-727-4333. That's 949-727-4333. Take advantage of their exclusive 100% rehab program. 949-727-4333. Or find us online at polarisequitygroup.com. We have reviewed your application for credit, and at this time we are unable to approve you. The dreaded credit denial letter. You've had strong credit, but life got in the way and companies are turning you down. The Dino and Nelson Show has a solution with Saving My Credit. Saving My Credit offers highly skilled specialists and a research methodology that is consistently applied to improving your financial situation. Nagging collection accounts, late pays, tax liens, bankruptcies, charge-offs are some of the many examples of negative reporting that leads to credit denial. Saving My Credit applies rigorous energy, experience, and resourcefulness to raise your credit score. Your credit is approved. It would feel so much better, wouldn't it? Contact Saving My Credit at 714-699-4680 or savingmycredit.com. That's 714-699-4680, 714-699-4680, or online at savingmycredit.com.
This is Nelson from the Dino and Nelson Show, and finally, a reputable legal firm. CDA Law Center, a nationally recognized nonprofit homeowner advocate, one of the most trusted firms in the country for helping consumers with their loan modification process. CDA's attorneys have decades of combined experience guiding their clients through the very complex and choppy waters of loan modification. Call 877-499-4435. 877-499-4435. Finally, honest and ethical advice to gain real results. Call CDA Law Center at 877-499-4435 or online at cdalawcenter.com.
Welcome back. This is Dino from the Dino and Nelson Show here on K-Talk, AM 1150. We can be reached at 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335. This next segment is brought to you by CDA Law Center, providing accurate and reliable loan modification services.
So, Dino, isn't this unbelievable? The Lyon Air Museum, we're here with General William Lyon, and I have to say, as we went through that first segment and talked about the building background and the 50 years of development, the 100,000 homes, I was all out of sorts. I'm just not used to being this nice to you. I don't like it at all.
I actually don't like it either. It's throwing me off. I'm sitting here looking at you. You're not smiling and trying to throw me off. I'm not trying to throw you off. And we're sitting here next to the general, so I think both of us are scared and we're trying to be proper. And I don't think the general's all that proper. I think he'll throw it at us if he gets a chance.
I think there's a little bit of sarcasm in there as well. Yeah. So, General, we've been talking about the leader that you've been in business, and I wanted to shift gears and talk a little bit about your military background. And most people may not realize all of the accomplishments that you had before the development business, but how you carried on with the military during your development career. And the Air Force headed up the Air Force Reserves, was in command of 53,000 of our troops. Managed a budget, $700 million budget, was back at the Pentagon for 4 years, decorated, highly recognized for his military accomplishments, was given the Legion of Merit Award, the Distinguished Flying Cross, the Presidential Unit Citation. It goes on, the Combat Readiness Medal. I don't have a single medal.
Your wife hasn't even given you a medal?
Nothing? No, I think
the good guy medal?
My wife wants to give me a dishonorable discharge is what she wants to give.
You actually deserve it. I saw you.
Yeah.
I saw you on 4th of July.
Yeah, exactly. So General, I want you to share with our listeners the story, and you've told this to me a number of times. I think it's just fascinating how you fell in love with aviation.
This is going to be a long meeting here today.
Yeah. It was back in the 6th grade, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we were challenged by the teacher that all the participants were going to be both girls and boys, and we had to build a very big glider, 3 feet wide on the wingspan.
Made out of balsa wood.
Yeah, made out of balsa wood. And in those years, girls didn't do that kind of thing in school. I mean, they had bows in their hair, they wore skirts, and they were
And they weren't building
They
planes.
weren't even playing on the field. We had a field. We just kicked the ball with nothing special. Because I went to a school, and the school was called the University Training School, which meant it was really a subsidiary of UCLA.
I can't believe you said the words,
Yeah,
UCLA.
right.
We'll delete that out.
They come tough. By the time, but anyway, so the school was an advanced school to try new ways to train children, and they had a lot of new ways, and this is one of them. So the teacher said, everyone's going to build this glider, and you're not going to leave the school ever till this glider flies. So that was the beginning.
And it was it was graded on how if it flew or not, correct?
Yeah.
So you had to march up into the hills of Los Angeles.
Yeah, and that's what we did. And they were all finally flew.
And did
so that
yours
was
fly
the
the first
beginning
time?
that's the beginning of being interested in aviation. And then I had a sidekick, young buddy that was named Fred Coneycamp, and we happened to be the two cut-ups in the 4th grade. I think it took a long time, but he got me very interested in aviation, and we started going out to fields looking at airplanes taking off, and wound up jumping into high school, and it was in the military, the Navy program. And at that time, you had to have 2 years of college and be 21 years old, and we couldn't
To enter the aviation
we're 18
program.
years old and didn't have 2 years of college.
Yeah.
So then the war started, they changed it, and we rushed down there, and this is part of my history because it had an influence on where it all came out. When we went down, and so did 1,000 other kids go down the same day when they announced this in the newspapers and on the radio. And so went through a really very difficult physical examination. The Navy really does things very thorough. My buddy, he went through, they signed him in. I was the next one in line. And the doctor looked at my nasal passage and said, I don't like the looks of the inside of your nose. And I had never heard that expression before.
Yeah, exactly.
And it crossed my head at the time that I looked at him, and I didn't like the looks of the outside of his nose. But I thought, that's probably nothing I should not say that here.
Exactly.
And so he failed with the letters about this big and took me to a door and pushed me out the door and said,
And you were
Wow.
turned away when you tried to enlist. This is in 1941.
yeah,
You know what I find interesting though about the story is it may be different from today as back then how many people rushed down, in his own words, to enlist. They wanted to go. Versus now
Exactly.
it's not quite like that, is it?
no. My parents said, well, maybe there is something wrong with your nose, and we may need to have it fixed. So, anyway, so I had an operation which wasn't a lot of fun. It took a couple months to heal it up. Went back, went through the Navy thing, and wound up with the same doctor. And he looked at my nose and he said, I didn't like the looks of the inside of your nose when I first saw it, and I still don't like it. So
And what are the odds? You have the majority of young men in the United States at that time that are enlisting in all the services. You end up with the same physician that's hung up
Yeah.
on the inside of your nose.
Well, I can tell you in the Army Air Corps, the chances of ever getting a doctor twice in a row is very limited because they're shipping him out, bringing new
Sure.
guys in. But the point was, when that happened, when he said that to me, I took it upon myself. I said, and you believe this or not, I said, God doesn't want me to be a Navy pilot. There's something stopping this.
Right.
Because how can this be? How can this doctor say that to me? Because my whole career in the Air Force, which lasted a long time, I went in shortly after the time we're talking about and stayed in the Air Force for a long time. When I retired, had 10 and a half years of active duty, and I had another 25 years of reserve duty. And I was all those years, and I never had a doctor. Every time I went for a flight physical, I'd be
Never had an issue with your nose.
shrugged up to think they're going to figure it out what's wrong. No one ever mentioned. I must have had 50 different physicals and never had it mentioned. So the point is that it taught me, I think, that there is something bigger than yourself going around. There's a plan here for everyone.
And if this physician only knew that he was steering away a 2-star general at the time, I think that many of us have said that I have the perfect nose for radio, so I can feel for all of this. When you were finally got in and you were deployed, you flew missions through South America, over to Africa, into the European communities. Tell us a little bit about that.
To get into the flying program, because I was really concerned about how do I get into the military. I couldn't get in the Navy, and I was finally accepted to be a cadet in the Army Air Corps. But in the meantime, I became an instructor, and one of the first programs I was on was, guess what, a Navy program training Navy people to be Navy pilots. And it seemed to be such a contradiction to me that here I could do that and teach these people to solo and teach them how to fly, but I couldn't be in the Navy. So the point of all that is what changed this whole thing for me was that the Navy had representatives there at the school in Tucson. And I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, but I can remember Lieutenant Ferrero. And Lieutenant Ferrero, he didn't have any medals, and I don't know how long he'd been in the service, and he had a couple of sidekicks. And they wanted us to teach these young people how to fly, how the Navy flies, which is all based on, and I hope not offend somebody on the air here about telling, it was all, look, they want every landing to be like it is on a carrier, and about 8% of the people in the Navy are ever going to get on a carrier, because we only had 6 carriers in the whole world, so how many Navy pilots could get on?
Right.
Wow.
In the parks. But anyway, they were constantly talking about, when this program's over, we're going to take you all in the Navy, and we're going to give you your wings, and we're going to do this. And no, I wouldn't buy it. So they took all these guys but 2 in the Navy, and they didn't make them officers, and most of them worked out of the program. These were experienced pilots. But that's another thing. Only 2 of us went in the Army. And so I finally went into the Army Air Corps, but I went in a program that they came out with, which was different. They sent us in there as civilians, and then they sent us to a school for 30 days to become an officer. But we became what was a new rank in the Air Force called a flight officer, which was about the lowest you can get of any award, because you were. It was a very difficult time.
And
So
it was finally your entry to get in.
Yeah, it was. So I got in, and I flew a lot of different airplanes in the Ferry Command at Long Beach, and then I was sent to Africa and flew C-46 to C-47s.
And which one of the planes here is the C-47?
That one.
The Willadine?
Yeah.
So we're
Name-
sitting in front of this
I'm
magnificent
smart.
airplane.
I named it after my wife.
Yeah, that's right.
I heard you bought it for her for your anniversary. I thought that was brilliant.
Yes, well, and it set the bar. We now have to invest in planes for our wives, don't we?
Yeah.
Right.
I don't mean to cut you off, General. We have to
No.
break for a commercial real quick.
Good.
You're listening to the Dino and Nelson Show here on K-Talk AM 1150 every weekend afternoon. We can be reached at 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335.
In a chaotic real estate market, you want peace of mind when it comes to the home you're purchasing. Roadrunner Exterminating, a family-owned and operated company providing structural repairs, local treatments, and fumigation. Roadrunner Exterminating is a licensed, bonded, and insured expert in termite, pest control, and general contracting. For fast and efficient service, plus the peace of mind of knowing the condition of your new home, call Roadrunner Exterminating at 866-398-BUGS. That's 866-398-BUGS. Or on the web at roadrunnerexterminating.com. As always, mention the Dino and Nelson Show and get a free home inspection. 866-398-BUGS or roadrunnerexterminating.com. General Contractor License 922404. Nominal fee for escrow inspections.
This is Nelson from the Dino and Nelson Show, and I want to tell you about one of our show partners, Efficient Services Escrow. As the name implies, Efficient Services Escrow provides lenders, realtors, home buyers, and sellers with fast, efficient, but most importantly, worry-free specialty escrow services. Dino and I know firsthand that real estate transactions can be complex and layered with areas of exposure for details to be handled incorrectly. The number one reason we work with Efficient Services Escrow is their seasoned veterans are reliable, proactive, and best of all, provide us worry-free escrow services. With any real estate sale, purchase, or refinance, call our trusted friends at Efficient Services Escrow, 949-208-9600. That's 949-208-9600, and let them know that Dino and Nelson sent you. Efficient Services Escrow at 949-208-9600 or online at efficientescrow.com.
What do you do when your bank simply says no to your real estate purchase? Polaris Equity Group provides an answer: yes. Our flexible purchase and bridge loan programs are the direct result of our involvement in more than 3,000 transactions of varying size and complexity. Since 1991, Polaris has completed over $500 million in real estate investment transactions using both debt and equity solutions. When the bank says no, call Polaris Equity Group to hear yes. 949-727-4333. That's 949-727-4333. Logical decisions to execute a timely close. 949-727-4333. Or find us online at polarisequitygroup.com. The Dino and Nelson Show is brought to you by Best Chauffeured. Best Chauffeured offers personal chauffeur services for corporate events, large and small, and all types of people, not just celebrities. So next time you just want to relax and enjoy the ride, please call on Best Chauffeured Worldwide. It's effortless transportation and first-class service every time. Call 866-323-BEST. That's 866-323-BEST or online at bestchauffeured.com. Mention KTLK's Dino and Nelson Show and receive a special discount. 866-323-BEST or online at bestchauffeured.com.
Welcome back to the Dino and Nelson Show here on K-Talk, AM 1150. We can be reached at 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335. We're here at Lyon Air Museum with General William Lyon, and we have some interesting background on him.
It's fascinating with just hearing the stories about what you were commissioned to do in the military and the flights that you had to take. You've shared with me in the past some of the flights that you deployed going across the Atlantic into Africa and up into the European communities. What was it like flying those?
Well, it was good, but when you first go in, those were long trips. With the first plane I took was a C-47, like the one sitting over there. The co-pilot had never been one or never seen one. The only one that knew anything was the crew chief, because he'd been in the Air Corps for a long time, and I was checked out on the airplane. So we plodded through and went the route there, and the most difficult thing was to get into England, because the weather doesn't seem to ever be very good in England.
Right, exactly.
And they forgot to tell us that part when we were flying there, so it's a long flight from Casablanca to England.
And General, I'm just guessing it's nothing like flying or riding in a Cadillac, right?
No.
It's nothing like a Cadillac.
Well, and it's nothing like today's aviation, where they can mark every place, every position of where your airplane is.
Everywhere you looked, there was an airfield. We were
Right.
just not used to that. We're used to have seen a big thing like this.
Just
out
one
here.
airport, right.
One airport. And so saying, is that where what do we do? So I saw a field and started circling it, and it was a British field. And certainly finally gave me the light, which means you can land. And I landed, and the guy came out, a Brit in an American Jeep that we gave him, and said he knew exactly where I was going and what I was. He said, just go 30 kilometers right straight ahead.
You landed at the wrong airport.
You'll get to the right airport. He said, it happens all the time, don't worry about it. Anyway, while we were in England, that's when they were having the buzz bombs by the Germans, and you'd hear this thing buzzing over, everything. And the Royal Air Force had learned by then how to shoot them down in the sky instead of, just let them go out to sea or wherever they were going to get it out so it wouldn't harm anybody. But I mean, they were just things that were so different and so new that, it was really a great experience. We just loved every minute of what we were doing.
And most people don't realize that you mentioned how many airfields that there were over in Britain, and most people don't realize how many planes were actually in force.
Oh, it was unbelievable. And, during that period near the end of the war, Jimmy Doolittle was the commander of the 8th Air Force, and he was a strong personality, and he was a marvelous individual, separate from all of that. But he, many days, had more than 1,000 of our airplanes in the air at the same time. 1,000 airplanes.
1,000 planes in the air at the same time.
Going against the Germans. And he knew that was the only way you're going to get this done. And there was criticism of that back here in the United States. People said we shouldn't be bombing the Germans like that and all that stuff. But that's how the war was won. You had to stop because they weren't going to stop. They weren't quitting. They weren't going to give up.
We're sitting here at the Lyon Air Museum, and right behind us is the B-17 Flying Fortress, the Fuddy-Duddy. And this is one of the predominant planes that were flying these air raids, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, this was what it was all about, and we took terrific losses. In fact, the number is, I think, 399 of these B-17s were shot down by the Germans in World War II. And we have a special display of that in England at the airport there.
And the B-17, it's a difficult plane to fly, isn't it?
Well, no, it's not difficult, but it's not very. Everybody always thought it was very fast. It is. It's about 165 miles an hour. That's about it.
Yeah.
It's not very much what you see now in airplanes and what we've seen, since World War II. It's just a whole different thing.
So, Dino, I wanted to introduce the president of Lyon Air Museum, Mark Foster.
You mean the guy who's sitting on his cell phone right now checking
Yeah,
his emails?
he's riveted about my questions to the general, and I think he'll see that in his next review, perhaps.
I think Mark's heard all the general stories.
Maybe so.
True. We love them.
A lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're the same, but mostly I changed a lot of them.
Yeah, that's right.
Keeps it interesting.
Exactly. So we have at the Lyon Air Museum, there's how many aircraft on display here?
6 aircraft.
And those 6 aircraft, World War II planes predominantly, that carried forward into the Korean War.
Yeah. Mostly World War II with a little bit of Korea and Vietnam. All part of the greatest generation fleet.
And I want you to share with our listeners the vision. What is the vision that led to opening up of the Air Museum?
Well, it was really General Lyon's passion for aviation and his and youth education that was the driving force for Lyon Air Museum. And he had realized, of course, that there really wasn't anything in this area where we could show the kids what the history of what these air crews were going through during World War II. So luckily he had the position here with on the field where we could build the hangar. And the whole idea behind that is to provide that inspirational place where mostly the children can come and meet the people who participated, the greatest generation, the guys of World War II, and also read about and see the equipment in person.
That's actually what I found interesting. When we met earlier in the week to go over things, I really appreciated the fact that it wasn't just the general's hangout spot, man cave, or anything like that. It was truly something that he wanted to share with the younger generation to teach them about their history. And like you said, the greatest generation.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, for sure, that's what the motivation is behind it. It's definitely not a man cave.
And before the museum,
Although it would be a great one. This place is pretty cool.
before the museum opened, I mean, one of the driving forces was the children weren't learning as much about the greatest generation. What is the greatest generation?
Well, the greatest generation are those guys and, well, everybody who came somewhat of age right during that World War II time period where they were just young adults. And that was really coined by Tom Brokaw, I guess, when he wrote his book, The Greatest Generation. And really, it says it all. They really are the greatest generation. If you look at the content of their character and their integrity and everything they did, the sacrifices that they did, during that time period, that makes them the greatest generation.
And as far as aviation goes, General, you shared with me what I feel is how little training that the pilots received before they were commissioned and all of a sudden flying some of these planes.
I guess they thought it was ample as to what the training was, but they were very young and very inexperienced with that great bombing that General Doolittle
Right.
and those young people that went with him were exposed to that. But they were young pilots that were, in B-17s and all these different airplanes that you see here doing the what they were trained to do, and it was tough going. But
When I was learning how to fly and spending hours on hours in a little 172, which is a very simple plane to fly, and I couldn't imagine being 18 years old, going through the training program, and then just a matter of weeks later climbing into a B-17 and being sent over Germany. It just sounds unbelievable.
Well, I guess it's a good thing you weren't around
Exactly.
back then.
That's why I'm not part of the greatest generation.
In case you just jumped into your car, this is Dino and Nelson on K-Talk AM 1150. We're at the Lyon Air Museum at the John Wayne Airport with General William Lyon and Mark Foster, the president of Lyon Air Museum.
And so with these aircraft that are on display, we talked a little bit about the C-147. Is that the proper?
C-47.
C-47, excuse me. And then the fuddy-duddy. But we have another plane that I just wanted to have you share a couple of stories on that's behind us. It's nicknamed the Feeding Frenzy. What's the story behind this particular aircraft?
Okay, that's the Douglas-built A-26 Invader, and it's a twin-engine attack aircraft. It was built to be a bomber, but more of a low-level attack airplane. So it has a bomb bay, but then it also has guns on it. It has the highest horsepower engines of any aircraft in our hangar. It's got 2,000 horsepower Pratt & Whitneys on each side, so there's one on each side, twin engine, and it's the fastest airplane in the hangar as well. So it's really got to maybe go onto our website or Facebook page and look at pictures of it, but it's very mean looking. It's very aerodynamic. It's got what's called a laminar flow wing, which is almost a fighter aircraft type of wing, and very slick, and of course it's got teeth. It just looks like a mean airplane.
We had one of these tour guides that took us out to the platform and was describing what the theater looked like. And he described it with, if you could see that seagull right over there in the water, that's where I was blown off of the USS Alabama and into the water. And I think this is telling this history, Mark. I think that's where these kids can see what these warriors went through live.
Yeah, it truly is. Of our docents, we have about 80 or so active docents on our roster here at Lyon Air Museum. Of those guys, we've got Pearl Harbor survivors, guys who were fighter pilots who shot down Messerschmitts and Germans during World War II, guys who bailed out of B-17s and B-24s, ditched B-24s. Their stories are just incredible, and every one of them, when you talk to them, they always just say, I was just doing my job.
We're going to break to commercials, but do hang on because these guys are extremely fascinating. They were POWs. Pilots that got blown out of the sky, and I cannot wait to hear their story. You're listening to the Dino and Nelson Show here on K-Talk AM 1150. We can be heard every weekend afternoon. We can also be reached at 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335.
We've reviewed your application for credit at this time, and we're unable to approve you. The dreaded credit denial. You had strong credit, but life got in the way and companies are turning you down. The Dino and Nelson Show has a solution with Saving My Credit. Saving My Credit offers highly skilled specialists and a research methodology that is consistently applied to improve your financial situation. Nagging collection accounts, late pays, tax liens, bankruptcies, charge-offs are some of the many examples of negative reporting that leads to credit denial. Saving My Credit applies rigorous energy, experience, and resourcefulness to raising your credit score. How about this instead? Your credit is approved. It sounds so much better. Contact Saving My Credit at 714-699-4680 or savingmycredit.com. That's 714-699-4680. 714-699-4680 or online at savingmycredit.com.
What do you do when your bank simply says no to your real estate purchase? Polaris Equity Group provides an answer: yes. Our flexible purchase and bridge loan programs are the direct result of our involvement in more than 3,000 transactions of varying size and complexity. Since 1991, Polaris has completed over $500 million in real estate investment transactions using both debt and equity solutions. When the bank says no, call Polaris Equity Group to hear yes. 949-727-4333. That's 949-727-4333. Logical decisions to execute a timely close. 949-727-4333. Or find us online at polarisequitygroup.com. The Dino and Nelson Show is brought to you by Best Chauffeured. Best Chauffeured offers personal chauffeur services for corporate events, large and small, and all types of people, not just celebrities. So next time you just want to relax and enjoy the ride, please call on Best Chauffeured Worldwide. It's effortless transportation and first-class service every time. Call 866-323-BEST. That's 866-323-BEST or online at bestchauffeured.com. Mention KTLK's Dino and Nelson Show and receive a special discount. 866-323-BEST or online at bestchauffeured.com.
Welcome back to the Dino and Nelson Show here on K-Talk, AM 1150. We can be reached at 888-814-3335, 888-814-3335, or at dinoandnelson.com.
You know, Dino, I'm sitting here between General William Lyon and Harry Selling, who's a storied veteran, and I'm just looking out across the C-47, the Feeding Frenzy attack bomber, the fuddy-duddy B-17 Flying Fortress. I mean, I have every right to be awestruck.
This is amazing, and I urge you to get online at dinoandnelson.com. Give us a few days. We will get the pictures up. You have to see this, and then you have to make a trip down here. This is fantastic.
Yeah, and this is what people really need to realize. There's this era of aviation that's being shared here, and it's just a fabulous museum. I wanted to introduce Harry Selling. And Harry, welcome to the program. I'm really excited to meet you.
Thank you.
So I wanted to ask you this question in terms of, we talked a little bit in the last segment in terms of all these young men that were showing up to become aviators and the training that they had and how quickly they needed to be trained. What was it like? How do you create pilots out of these 18-year-old boys?
Well, first of all, you give them a test to see if they mentally can put two sentences together.
Right. Something I haven't been able to do in this radio show.
And you got to look at the inside of their nose to make sure that they're okay.
And they better have 20/20 and no red from green.
Right.
But I think the biggest thing that's required there is an ego. You've got to create an ego. So you send him, like I went to Oxnard for 65 hours. And by the time you've soloed and you got your silk scarf and your leather jacket, you start to walk with a swagger. And it better be serious swagger because you need to have the ego.
You needed to have some attitude.
So then the next basic training was 65 hours. And a lot of that is just fooling around, ringing the plane out. By the time you get graduation, you can hardly talk to the guy. He's got it so much. So now we need transition. And so I went into B-17s, and that's another 120 hours. And then the next one you'd go to is operational, which is another 120 hours. By the time you're ready for combat, you feel very confident, and you are really capable of whatever's required. And that ego gets a little rubbed off. No, you don't have the edges that you started with.
Right.
It's good.
And you were a B-17 pilot, correct?
Right. I was in 43I. I went through Santa Ana here for classification.
So, Harry, you're a young man. You had the training. You had the swagger. Tell me what happened on your very first mission.
I went to briefing. We were going to go to Leipzig, a well-protected target, and everybody was moaning, and I
I don't want to embarrass myself, so I show up in with all my stuff. I have my watch and my glasses and my gun and everything. So I go to the briefing, and I'm to fly with an experienced crew. My crew would just stand down. So I reported to this out where the plane was parked, and he looked me up, the captain looked me up and down and didn't say anything. But I went around and introduced myself to all the crew, and there was very little eye contact, mostly just grunts. And so then he took me aside, and he said, I had a 45 tied with a thong. He said, "You going to wear that gun?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Have you filed the sights off of it yet?" I said, "No, should I?" And he said, "Yeah, so when they shove it up your ass, it won't hurt." Which has got my attention.
Perfect. I think that'll get the listeners' attention. Well done. So Harry, that was your start, but you flew how many missions?
I flew 7.
7 missions.
I was shot down on my 7th.
And tell us about when you were shot down.
Well, this is called a fighter beat. We had been losing 60 planes a day. And we told the Germans where the targets were and what altitude and the timing and everything. It was a challenge, like you throw down the gauntlet. We were over Berlin, and we shuffled the deck with another group. We turned left without looking. And when I was flying along, my upper turret gun started firing, and I'd never heard them before, and they're right behind you. And I looked around to what he was firing at, and it was a 190. Focke-Wulf 190, and he was pumping 20 millimeter shells into my instrument panel. And then he severed the controls, and I went into a vertical climb, followed by a hammerhead stall. Fire broke out in the cockpit. I took my mask off to bail out, but there was no place to go. And when I awakened, I was just in the small part of the plane. The plane had come apart, and the seats were gone, and the upper turret ring was there. But I was able to, I had a backpack on, I was able to fall out. I must have been about 800 feet, and I lit in a tree with the canopy caught. And
you got out of the plane, but only 800 feet up.
Right. So the canopy, the parachute, no injuries except for my face got burnt. But I was 80, maybe 20 or 30 feet in the air, and I just shimmied down. So it was.
And you were in enemy territory and became a prisoner of war.
Yes, but I'm the sole survivor. I lost 8 men. So I was a prisoner for 9 months. Got down to 115 pounds. My upper arm was the same size as my wrist. We were hungry.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's an amazing story. And folks, you have to realize the reason why we're even able to have our freedom right now is thanks to men like this and the sacrifices they made prior to us, many years before a lot of us. So let's not forget about them.
Yeah, we want you to encourage you to come down to the Lyon Air Museum, spend time with these heroic individuals and the sacrifices that they made. Harry, it's a tremendous pleasure to meet you. Thank you for your service. I really, really enjoyed this.
Thank you, Harry.
Good.
Thank you. Yeah, in case you just jumped in your car, this is Dino and Nelson here on K-Talk AM 1150. We are a remote broadcast at the Lyon Air Museum at the John Wayne Airport, and it's quite an honor. We're sitting here with General William Lyon. We're sitting here with Harry Selling, docent of the museum. Come down and meet him. He'll gladly tell you all his stories.
Good to hear you say that word.
Yeah, I learned what docent means. We'd like to introduce our next guest, Edward Francis Stapleton, pilot and POW. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to see you here.
Ed, thanks for coming on the show. It's an honor, and we had some time with Harry, and he had some fascinating stories, and really honored that you could come on our show as well. You were also a pilot of the B-17, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, and so tell us about your attraction to aviation and the experience that you had.
Well, Pearl Harbor Day was in Washington, and we heard about the bombing, and everybody got excited. And as soon as we were able, 18 years of age, to enlist, everybody did, and I enlisted in the aviation program for aviation cadets of the Army Air Force. But after I had finished the training and so forth, I ended up assigned to the 92nd Bomb Group, 325th Bomb Squadron as a repo crew. And what happened, on my ninth mission, we pulled one that was a tough one. The target that day was called Cottbus, which was the town that a component part factory for the ME-109s was being manufactured. They had tried to bomb it before. They had missed it due to the extensive camouflage around that plant. So our colonel indicated that the way to get this is to bomb at a lower altitude and eliminate the camouflage.
And putting yourself more at risk.
Well, we fainted for Berlin. This town is about 70 miles east-southeast of Berlin. And we fainted for Berlin at 19,500 feet, which is a normal bombing altitude for a B-17, and dropped down to 10,500 feet for a bombing run. At that particular time, the navigator and bombardier were very quick to pick up the target this time because visually the camouflage was not as effective. We were able to bomb the target at about 12,000 feet climbing out after the bomb run, and the flak had stopped. We were attacked by a fleet of ME-109s and a couple FW-190s in there. They happened to stray our plane across from the left tangent, and I had my navigator and my top turret gunner killed in the plane and lost the right two engines. I think that the hole in the wing between the two engines was big enough to put your living room couch. Having said that, what do? Bail out.
Yeah.
And I had my turret gunners in the waist and the tail gunner bail out through the rear hatch. The radio operator, my co-pilot, and myself went out through the bomb bay door, and the bombardier went out through the front hatch. I landed on the ground, and when I heard the sound of dogs ducked into I guess a briar patch, which nobody in their right mind would go in, but the sound of the dogs disappeared, and for 2 days I was on the run until a forest ranger picked me up and hauled me into the Burgermeister's office, who's the mayor of the town, and his wife said when she opened the door and gasped that I was full of blood and so forth, not knowing that I had been really hit that badly. My worst experience was when I parachuted. I hung up in the trees and had to drop about 15 feet to the ground and sprained my ankle.
Were you shot?
Yes, I had shrapnel on my face and then my left leg and so forth. Well, any event, got over to the interrogation center and had a funny experience there. It turns out the interrogator, after the name, rank, and serial number was given, sounded his dialect was so familiar, and this is a funny side of what happens in war. It turns out to be, as he explained to me, a resident of Jersey City, New Jersey, for 14 years, and he was my interrogator.
Is that right?
You have funny things like that. So then I ended up in Stalag Luft 3. Now, that's the site of the Great Escape. The movie was Steve McQueen.
Right.
And that's the camp I was in. And we were there until the late winter of 1944. We ended up on the road again, marching down to Moosburg. And we were liberated there by the Patch's army, who was working under Patton, and we had 76,000 prisoners there when we were liberated by them.
Yeah, fascinating.
Right.
That is an amazing story. And I'd like to also say for everybody listening out there, next time you think about complaining about your life, don't do it. It's, when you come and sit and talk with men like this, You have nothing to complain about. You only have things to be thankful for. We want to thank all of you very much for today's interview. You've been great. General, thank you so much. And Ed, thank you. Mark. You're listening to the Dino and Nelson Show here on K-Talk AM 1150. We're broadcasting out of the Lyon Air Museum at John Wayne Airport. We'd love it if you could take some time out of your life and come down here and experience what we just did today. It is truly an amazing sight to see.
And it's just fantastic that we have this museum that you put together, General. We're thankful for that. We're thankful for your service as well. Unbelievable experience, Ed. And Dino, I think that really am impacted just with this experience. A little bit off angle in terms of our real estate focus, but I think it was just fantastic to share the General's history and new development and then focus over the 4th of July week what we're really celebrating.
I agree. But we will be back next week talking about real estate once again. We'll be with Phil Immel of Prudential in Ritz-Carlton and Beverly Hills. So again, this is the Dino and Nelson Show on K-Talk AM 1150. We can be reached at 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335 or at dinoandnelson.com. See you next week.